The Innovators Network.
Welcome to the Killer Innovation Show, the longest continuously produced podcast in history. Each week, Phil McKinney brings you the insights and strategies to amplify your creativity and innovation skills. Here's your host, Phil McKinney.
Welcome to this week's Killer Innovation Show. We are back in the studio from our trips on the bus, most recently up to Philadelphia and the Tech Expo show, which was actually a great show this year, very well attended, and got a lot of great interviews, which we'll be sharing here on the show. So stay tuned for those. But today we have a special guest, somebody that I've known for, 15, 16 years, back when during my time at HP and now even in my current day job. Today's guest is Matt Greeley. Matt is the CEO for a company called BrightIdeas. I've talked about BrightIdeas in past shows. BrightIdeas is an idea management system. When I was CTO at HP, we chose BrightIdeas to be the underlying platform for the IMS, or idea management system, for all of HP. Matt actually talks about that a little bit in the show, and how thrilled they were to win that business, but also how scared they were when you're throwing that many employees onto a relatively new and early stage product. We spend a lot of today talking about the progression of ideas and idea management and how organizations should think about ideas as a valuable asset, and how do you manage that through the entire process. So you want to make sure you listen all the way through, but also a little teaser at the end. Matt has a special announcement, so you want to make sure you listen all the way through the show so you hear the announcement from BrightIdeas and some new directions on where things are going with regards to conveying and communicating ideas. It's not just about the technical aspect, if it's a technical idea as an example, but how you tell that story. How do you tell that innovation story? And that'll be all wrapped into and part of the announcement. And it's important because that announcement that you're hearing today, if you are listening to this on the release date of this episode, is the day this announcement is being made publicly by BrightIdeas. So you want to make sure you listen to it and take advantage of what Matt is going to share. So with that, before we jump into today's episode, got that favor to ask. Follow us on social media, like this episode, and share it. And I would also encourage you to hop on over to theinnovators.network. That is where all the show content now is aggregated. All of my articles are there, along with others. And there's actually some new podcasts that are going to be launched here by other contributors to the network, starting here in late fall, early winter. So you're going to want to make sure you sign up for the newsletter over there so you get up to date and you get the weekly update of all the great content that's being produced by all the contributors over on the Innovators Network. And with that, let's hop in to this week's episode.
This episode is sponsored by Zoom. With Zoom, you can streamline your communication, collaboration, and creativity all in one place. Zoom is the market-leading platform that provides video meetings, voice, webinars, and chat across desktops, phones, tablets, and conference room systems. To learn more about Zoom and sign up for your free account, visit killerinnovations.com/Zoom.
Hey, Matt, it has been way too long. I think the last time you and I talked, I was still at HP, and you were servicing us with your BrightIdeas. So what have you been up to? What's going on?
Yeah, those are the good old days. I remember when you came to us at HP and you said, all right, we're going to dump all of our employees into your platform. We're this tiny little startup, and the servers were shaking to try and keep up with the whole thing. So,
hey, like I said, be careful what you wish for. You come after the big whale. I think probably at that time, I don't know, we were probably 40,000 employees at that time. And then we grew to 240,000 employees.
Yep. Yeah, we were all excited to get the logo, and then you guys were like, "We're going full tilt on this thing." So I hope you guys can keep up with us. That was a lot of fun, but yeah, we're a much smaller company back then. So,
well, I think though, back when you were first starting out, and when we were working at looking at tools back in the HP days, the hardest part was everybody was doing homegrown platforms to try to capture ideas coming in, whether it be field sales organizations or customer asks or ideas coming from engineering teams or ideas coming out of research organizations such as the HP Labs at HP. Everybody had note cards, spreadsheets, any and every way to try to capture and try to catalog it. But you knew you were just losing and dropping a lot of things on the ground. Yeah. And, and thus when we at HP started looking around and came across, your tool, and we took the risk because you were pretty small when we committed to Bright Ideas, and then we transformed it internal to HP. It's referred to as the HP Garage. So if you're not familiar with the HP Garage, you can go look at the Wikipedia page. The Garage is noted as the birthplace of Silicon Valley, and we use that as an internal nomenclature of thinking about what happened when Bill Hewlett and David Packard worked in the garage, coming up with their original ideas, to using Bright Ideas as the tool for the HP Garage now to capture, catalog, organize, and prioritize ideas. So you were kind of in the early days of idea management systems.
Yeah, I mean, we were looking at these. It's funny if you ask an executive what their priorities are, most of them will say innovation is in the top 5. But if you look at their IT stack, they've got, they're spending a bunch of money on CRM, they're spending a bunch of money on support, they're spending a bunch of money on software development platforms like Jira. And, but then they're like, well, what's your platform for innovation? And they're like, well, what do you mean? We have sticky notes on the wall, and if one falls off, so be it, So, and it's like, oh, well, isn't that like the future of your business? Isn't that like what all this, implied value in your stock is based on, is what you're going to do next? And then there was just a void there. So that's really where BrightIdea came from, was, try and fill that void, try and have a platform that's as robust as, say, a Salesforce.com, but instead of it being the sales pipeline, it's your innovation pipeline. And you start with ideas, and then you got to, work through the whole prioritization process all the way through to commercialization. But yeah, you were one of the early believers, and we really appreciate that. And, and of course, having HP as a customer was a great calling card, as we went out to the market. So yeah, thank you so much for being there in the early years.
We probably should have taken warrants.
Yeah, it wouldn't have been a bad idea, I'll tell you that.
But yeah, I mean, and it is one of the challenges, right? Because a lot of people get worried about locking down too tightly, right? Forcing kind of a forced process, right? A forced set of steps, right? Innovation is messy. The front end of innovation is very messy. And having a tool that's not, handcuffs, I guess is the best term I can, and that was always the challenge. The early days, a lot of the tools, though, were pretty restrictive. You could do some simple things. But I think the recognition over time of the variety of ideas and the variety of how ideas happen, like even at HP, the idea process through the personal systems group, PCs, laptops division, is completely different than how ideas get managed through server division, right? You have subcultures within an organization, and adapting to that becomes really critically important to support the whole process of ideas.
Yeah, it's been this massive evolution. I mean, I remember when we first started, and, just putting an idea in the database, the concept there was an idea object, right, in the database, thinking like an engineer, was kind of new, right? But once you put it in there the thing that I was enamored with is you put it in there, it's a web system, anyone in the world can kind of build on it, you know? So I was always interested in, you know, the brainstorming meetings with the sticky notes or the whiteboard and creating a shared space where people are on the same page and, you know, driving alignment. And then with the internet, I was like, wow, if you put this thing in a database and you surface it on a web page, active web pages was like the big thing back in the day. Like anyone in the world can go in there and build on it. And that alone was like enough to get me out of bed. Like I thought that was super exciting. I mean, this is even before, I mean, now people just go into a Google Doc and people start typing with each other. But this is, you know, a decade before that. And then from that point, you know, you put the idea in the database and then, you know, we just kind of stayed close to our customers and tried to design something beautiful. And, you know, so they're like, well, we need status, we need workflow, we need a process. So we need multiple processes because this department wants to do it differently. You know, we need, you know, we want a timing where this is going to open and close, you know, and then we started branching out into hackathons and, you know, how does the innovation lab work differently than someone doing crowdsourcing challenges? So it's been this kind of evolution and, you know, to build that kind of, you know, Salesforce level richness into the solution. And, you know, sometimes there's people outside the company you want involved. Sometimes it's, you know, just a kind of a R&D department. You don't want anyone else to see what's going on there. You want to kind of lock it down. So kind of the enterprise permissions layered in. So it's just been this like extended evolution. I mean, the good news is there's always been pull from our customers to say, I need this, I need that. And we tried to, you know, kind of be receptive to that as best we could. And I still think to this day, there's a thousand more things we could do. You know, we're doing everything we can, but, you know, there's this, I almost feel like we came up on this vista. And it's like coming up on a ridge line and you see this whole valley of like, wow, they need that. And like, you know, you know, we probably only have like, you know, 30% of that, you know, to truly wire up a, you know, a global corporation for innovation is a pretty intense endeavor. But yeah, we just keep listening to folks and, you know, build what makes sense and try and build delightful experiences. And that just hasn't, you know, it's got us to where we are today. And I think it's going to keep us rolling for the next few years.
Well, it is interesting because you're developing the tool for hopefully what is the most creative part of the organization. So they don't lack for ideas of every little feature set that they want. But when you go back and you think about CEOs, because you talk to them, they reach out to you to look at, you know, Bright Ideas as a possible tool for them.
Yep.
What's been the transition of the CEO perspective of the value of those ideas? If you go back to when, you know, you and I first met and we were working with you on the early versions of Bright Ideas, that's got to be 05, I'm thinking, 06, something like that.
Yeah. Yep.
So, you know, we're, what, 17 years now?
Yep.
You know, in this game. What's been the perspective of the CEOs of organizations when you think about from then to now? How has that changed, and how do they think about the value of ideas?
Well, I love Steve Blank's phrase that you know, innovation on day one looks like a toy. You know, he said they were the Nokia folks were looking at the iPhone and they're like, oh, what's the market for smartphones? And they kind of missed the boat, right? So, you know, I think back in the day, a tool for ideas. What do you mean ideas? What's an idea? Is it a thought? You know, it looked like a toy. You know, it's like, okay, you know, the early adopters like yourself were like, I see where this is going and I see the vision and you know, kind of helped us co-create. But you know, so I think back then that was the state of the art. It was like, yeah, this is something, it might pay out, it might not, sort of like a fringe bet. And then you come through, you know, 08, you have the global financial crisis, you know, the Great Recession, you know, you come through, you know, where we are today with, you know, war and economic issues and all this stuff. And, you know, there's all these tech vectors that are running like 1,000 miles an hour right now, you know, like AI and you know, energy, I call energy 2.0, which is like solar and batteries and healthcare longevity and, you know, commercial space. And we've laid out like 10 of these things and they're just running, you know, full speed ahead and they're banging into each other. So, when the smartphone meets GPS, then it creates the opportunity for a service like Uber. And when who knows what's going to happen with I know you've got a Starlink satellite on the bus, and like if you have internet anywhere in the world, like what does that mean? And can I be in the middle of the Pacific Ocean doing a Zoom call? So these vectors are going 1,000 miles an hour, and they're banging into each other. So there's like this multiplier effect, synergistic effect of disruption and opportunities from that disruption. So I think CEOs are like, we gotta be on the front foot. Like, we can't take this on the ropes. Like, we gotta be up on our toes and punching. And I always think about, like, if you're at GM or VW or something like that, Mercedes, and you see Tesla, this is a clear and present danger, right? This is not a theoretical, future scenario planning thing. This is today. This is market share being eroded. This is, the whole business model, how we buy and sell cars being disrupted. Tesla's getting into insurance because they have your actual driving record. It's not your 18, so you're high risk. It's like, no, you drive 35 in a 45. So there's just massive opportunity being created with all these tech vectors, and I think the CEOs are like, my legacy is at stake. If we get disrupted, if someone comes along and like steals our whole market on my watch, like that's on me. So I think it's gone from. I remember the first day one of our customers said they're reporting on BrightIdea in the letter to shareholders. Basically, the annual letter to shareholders had data on their innovation pipeline, and I thought that was like an interesting like watershed moment, because like it had come from this toy, we'll just throw ideas in a database and stick them there and we'll figure out what to do with them later, all the way to like, this is, looking at our pipeline, quantifying our innovation pipeline, projected growth, filling that growth gap is core to what the CEO's job does. And now you just have, new crises. It seems like every 6 months, like, just constant crises. And so it's not an easy job to be a CEO these days. And I think innovation has come along as a somewhat of a remedy to some of the ills of just constant disruption and constant crises.
Yeah, I think one of the things I've seen change also is in the early days of IMS systems, idea management systems, it was really just about capturing the idea.
Yep.
Now, though, I think, you look at what you've done and the organizations, right? It's not just about capturing the idea, but how do you help people see the value of the idea,
Yep.
right? Because, my current organization, yes, we're using BrightIdeas at my current organization, and I'm just putting this out here. This is not a show of just a pure endorsement for BrightIdeas. And in fact, as Matt knows and the BrightIdea teams knows, that when Cable Labs started doing the process of evaluating IMS systems, I recused myself because I didn't want the history to be biased. So you had to win the business up against. It wasn't an automatic select just because you were the tool that HP chose, and you still won the business. So congratulations on that. We've been using you guys for 8 or 9 years now at Cable Labs. But it's gone from just the idea capturing, but how do you identify the value of the ideas? Because I've got a company full of, we're heavily engineers, PhD scientists, computer science engineers, software, AI, quantum, you name it, right? They're very good at coming up with ideas, hard at pitching the idea and the value that an idea can generate. And I think that's where the shift is coming. Idea management system is not just about capturing and cataloging and reporting statistics, how many new ideas came into the pipeline and how many progressed to the next step. All that's kind of table stakes now. But how do it's tools to help organizations find those ideas that have the highest value, and help people who are not experts in the science or the technologies or the industry or whatever it is to see the value. And where's your thinking on that?
Yeah, I mean, that really gets us up to the present. I mean, we talked about the early history, and then in between, we got into like tools for hackathons and tools for innovation labs and tools for engaging the external ecosystem and trend watching and all that stuff. But I think where we are today is, how do you, for a bigger idea, how do you mature that idea forward, and, I think, I spent a fair amount of time kind of researching Amazon, because Amazon's a pretty fascinating business. Obviously, they've got their fingers into everything. hard to go a day without interacting with Amazon, whether it's ordering something online or going to Whole Foods or something like that. But Amazon's unique in that they've incubated multiple billion-dollar businesses, and even a company that's been wildly successful like Facebook has really been acquisitive. They bought Instagram, and that's been a big win for them, but they didn't incubate that. They didn't come up with that internally. So Amazon sort of sticks out as like this organization that somehow is able to nurture these ideas from the inside. And one of our head of marketing, Justin Parnell, he has this phrase called "find your prime." Like, how do you find your prime? Like Amazon Prime is a $30 billion business or something like that, and it came from a digital suggestion box, and it was incubated internally. And so, a lot of companies like to find their prime. Like, where's my $1 billion expansion opportunity that's sitting in an employee's mind, and I just need to kind of farm that. So that's really the genesis of the product that we're launching today. We're calling it BrightIdea Memo, and it's about a tool that sets up a team for long-form narrative writing. I'm sure you know that Bezos actually killed PowerPoint. He basically said no more PowerPoint. I think you guys do as well at Cable Labs. You don't allow PowerPoint in those in your pipeline reviews.
Yeah, I don't allow PowerPoint in the pipeline review, and I get angst from the engineers every 6 months when we do the deep dive into the pipeline. Everybody argues for why they need PowerPoint, but it is outlawed.
Yeah, so I think in a lot of organizations, the things that got funded, it was like they had a slick sales guy and a PowerPoint deck and a lot of sizzle and sort of bloated projections that were never going to be realized, and then those things got approved, and that wasn't the best idea. The best idea wasn't winning. So what's interesting with the Amazon process is, they swapped out PowerPoint for writing 6-page memos, and you basically try and think about what this product is going to be in the future, and you work backwards from there. So you write it as if it's the launch day. You write a press release. You get customer quotes. You have the benefits and the scope. It's you anchor that moment in time, and then that's a way to get people to think concretely about the future, and then pull that back before they even start developing. So seeing that and seeing that Amazon had incubated AWS and Kindle and Alexa and all these like amazing projects from inside the company, we were like, this is really interesting. So we started to peel the onion on that and get under the hood and say, how is this working? And when we did that, we basically landed on the concept of BrightIdea Memo, which is the product we're releasing today, which is like, how do we build a tool so that if a team wants to set up that sort of long form narrative writing to develop their bigger ideas, we have a tool that kind of does a lot of the heavy lifting for you so that you're not you're not spending all your day managing that program. And just kind of, you have a place where all this stuff happens.
So I've seen other attempts at long form narrative, right, as a way to kind of future cast, or another way to think about it is you establish the future and then you backcast back to today. So you kind of say, okay, how do you drop the cookie crumbs to get from today to that future, right?
Yep.
To help people realize that that's viable, it's possible, it's realistic, versus Buck Rogers and science fiction. But it's hard. I think it's harder than people think. I mean, I do a fair amount of this. We do it in the form of what I call innovation storytelling, which are the short films. So these are 3.5 minute films. We've announced them here on the show. For those of you listening, new one just came out. Near Future 5. You can go check it out on YouTube. Just literally came out a couple weeks ago. So you can check that out. And I've taken that variation of what Bezos does, but I for some reason, I'm a visual guy. Right? I'm originally an architecture major. And so I'm much more of a visual kind of a thinker. And so I find films, short films, as being a way to convey what that future holds. But the power of that is incredible. The challenge is how do you help people through the process? So how's the BrightIdea tool do that? How do you help people? Because you tell an engineer to go write a six page technical paper, not a problem. A 6-page narrative story, and you have them jumping out the window.
Yeah, I mean, it is hard, and I think that's the beauty of it. I mean, even if you're doing a video, you're often writing a script or storyboard, and one of the important things you do is you pare down optionality to create that script, right? When you first start, you've got 50 ideas, and then you kind of start trimming and cutting, and then you hone in on something. So, I mean, there's a lot that can be done. Start with a template, right? What does a press release look like? And then, a lot of people are actually pretty good when you give them a template, right? You need a quote from the CEO. So, and the fact that they get to just make it up, they don't actually have to have, a customer say it or the CEO say it. They can just say, oh, the CEO said, I love this product or something.
So in effect, what you're really doing is saying, okay, we've got this idea. We want to launch it 3 years from now. We're actually going to create all of the launch materials that we would normally create for the launch, but for 3 years from now, as if the product was real. And if we were literally at that launch date, everything, including press release, the narrative descriptors, everything. So you're literally creating the launch materials 3 years before you normally would ever think about it, but using it as a way to solidify the idea. Do I get this right?
Yeah, and here's the insight. You think it's just an abstract exercise. Oh, we're writing a press release. Who cares, right? You can imagine writing the press release for Amazon Alexa or Amazon Prime. But what that does is it anchors a date and time. So you say, this is launching on October 18th. And then it says, here's the scope that's in this. So we're only going to win if we build this scope. And here's what customers are going to say and feel about this, right? So when you're immersed in all the weeds of like, oh, the AI model's not quite working the way we wanted it to, you have this beacon from the future that is persistent throughout the whole life cycle of the project that says, no, we have to deliver this, we have to deliver this, we have to deliver this on this date. You can't strip resources away from this project and still expect it to work. You can't strip scope out of this, and because you're breaking the contract at that point. There's this sort of like agreed to concrete view of the future that if we launch on this date with this scope and we have these resources to get there, we will win. And it sort of builds this contract. And there's life's hard. Things change over time, and you want to kind of skimp and change priorities and stuff like that. And you have this concrete document that sort of expresses that vision of the future. So again, I think as we unpacked what Bezos was doing at Amazon, it was sort of like walking in the trail of a genius, and what just seemed superficial. Oh, why ask people to write a press release, kind of think about the future? There are all these like very concrete things. If you set the launch date, you set the customer experience, you set the scope of the solution that you're delivering. And then that becomes like a calling card. So maybe someone joins midstream and you're like, read the press release. This is what we're aiming at. And it's not, you don't have to interpolate all that from 15 different PowerPoint slides.
Well, the other interesting, I'm not even going to call it a side benefit, really a core benefit, is alignment within the organization.
Yeah.
Right? Because otherwise, typically, the marketing department gets pulled in at the end. Yeah. Hey, we got this really great thing. We're going to launch it in 3 weeks. Hurry up, write the press release. Versus getting the entire organization involved in that visioning exercise of what does that really going to look like and how does it feel? And do does product marketing agree? Does product management align? Is engineering aligned? Is customer support aligned around it? And you get a much broader audience or ecosystem of input than you would have typically if it's an engineering originated idea and you got a bunch of engineers side. We're going to do a little rabbit trail here. I remember early on when I became CTO at HP and I was sitting in a product review and this engineer is pitching this product. I'm not going to name the product, and there was a couple of features in this product I just couldn't get my head around. And I'm kind of like, so what customer asked for that specific feature? And they're like, oh, no. We haven't heard that from customers, but we just thought it'd be really, really cool. I'm like, great.
Really cool benefit,
I'm like, great.
Yeah.
So now we're building a product for the entire audience is the 47,000 engineers at HP because they're the only ones who would ever figure out how to use that feature, right?
Yeah.
And, because we get in these bubbles and we think that we are the proxy, and we're not. We are not the proxy for the customer. I think, you recognize that BrightIdea, you're not the proxy for a customer like us using your platform. Like us, we're not a proxy for broadband customers in their home. We may think we are because I have broadband, cable broadband, 1 gig here into the studio. So therefore I'm a user, therefore I can be a proxy. No, I'm not a proxy, right? As I used to say at HP all the time, will it play in Iowa? It doesn't matter whether it plays in Silicon Valley. Will it play in Iowa? If it plays in Iowa, then we got a product. If it won't play in Iowa, we ain't got a product. Don't fool ourselves, right? And so I think this model that your tool set's supporting actually literally brings the entire organization together to think. It's not just something being originated from your CTO or head of engineering or the engineering team. It's really the whole organization being able to participate. And when you get alignment, say, okay, this is the press release. We're all agreed. Yep. This is the FAQs. This is the product descriptions. The feature sets. Are we all agreed? Yep. Okay. Now everybody's marching to the same direction.
Yep. Yeah, I'll give you a bit more on the product and how we're enabling that because I kind of dodged that question. But yeah, people, it's amazing that companies actually have a problem with being customer centric. They want to, everyone desires to, but then you get caught in the gears of the machinery. And so, it's just this massive forcing function to do that. Quick story from my background is one of my mentors, one of our investors, he was at ITT in like the 80s and an engineer came to him and said, I want to put up a constellation of satellites and, do this. They're going to talk to each other. They'll have the time. And he said, okay, well, what will the customer get? And he's like, well, we'll put the satellites up and do it. And he's like, yeah, but what's the customer going to get out of it? And he went through like 5 iterations of this. And basically the engineer was pitching the GPS system. And eventually he teased out that if we have this, no one will ever get lost anytime on the planet ever. And obviously massive military applications. So, but he was enamored with the how that was going to get built, launching these satellites and the constellation and timestamps and all the triangulation and all this stuff. And he had to get to that customer centric view, which is like, no one ever gets lost. No military hardware ever gets lost, So I think again, the press release, you immediately start asking yourself, well, what's the customer going to care about? What's the press going to care about? How do I make sure there's enough sizzle in this that someone actually wants to talk about this and we can build awareness on it? And what environment are we going to be in when this launches, such that it breaks through the noise of, our daily clutter. So like I said, there were just on the surface, it just looks like, write the press release, write an FAQ. But as you unpack those experiences, there's all this genius embedded in there. The FAQs ends up being a really efficient way of communicating information because you say what question you're going to answer and then you answer it. So if you don't need that answer, you can jump to the next one, as opposed to like a introduction executive summary. You're not sure what you're going to get for 2 paragraphs and stuff like that. So I think there's a lot of genius in this, embedded in this activity. And first and foremost is just putting the customer front and center from day one. We're going to shout out to the market. What are we going to say? What's going to be compelling? And then don't whittle that scope down over time. Don't make it, if someone had said, oh, we can't release Alexa with music. Like, no, that's not going to work. Alexa
Right.
needs to have music. Alexa needs to be able to tell you the time, the weather. There's a couple things that need to be in there, or it's just not going to work. And that kind of anchors the scope so that you can, when everyone's in the midst of building it, and there's always setbacks, they keep their eye on the prize, so to speak.
So this new product that's being released today by Bright Ideas, is it available for immediate availability? And what's been the feedback from the early customers who've been seeing it and using it?
Yeah, so the product's called BrightIdea Memo. We're launching it today. Memo is sort of long form narrative, and it can run within your existing BrightIdea instance, or new people can just go on the website and sign up. Intro pricing is just $99 per month, so pretty reasonable if you don't even have BrightIdea to get going with it. You set it up for a team, and basically it's a home for these outside the box projects that you need to kind of think about a little bit. You need to incubate for a little bit, and it's got a document editor. It's pretty powerful. You can also link in your Google Docs or your Microsoft Word doc, so you can write in whatever document you want to write in. And it's got collaboration, commenting, and then like as you know from BrightIdea, you can then send things for review. So you can send a peer review, and you can send it out to your colleagues, and not only can they comment in the doc, but they could say how good is the core idea. There's a little slider, 1 to 10. How well is the idea presented? So you might have a great idea, but it's not that well presented. And then there's a couple other questions. And then should we consider this in the next planning cycle? 1 to 10. So the writer, the author, can send that out for that peer review at any time and get that feedback, and maybe it's a good idea, but I don't think we should fund it in this next cycle, or maybe it's a great idea, but your presentation is crap, and you get someone from marketing here to help out. So we've got the core core document that you're building. We actually, because we're BrightIdea, we manage a backlog of all the potential documents that you can build too, so you can kind of prioritize that. And then we've integrated AI writing, so you can literally like write a sentence and click a button, and it writes the next paragraph for you, and then you can it won't be perfect, obviously, but it gives you something to work with. If you say the benefits of the product are, and you hit the AI button, it pulls a snippet for that. So that's based on some publicly available large language models, and then also some of our internal BrightIdea proprietary data from the past 20 years about what makes a good idea work and whatnot. So if you do have people have writer's block, they can say the key features of this this product are, and you got to give a little bit to the AI, but it'll give you good like marketing speak back. Like you're not worried about the commas and the periods. Like it gives you kind of clean.
Yeah, well, if people listening aren't familiar with all the AI writing tools like Jarvis, which I think now is called Jasper, and all these players that are out there, they're actually getting pretty darn good. It's actually, I'm not quite convinced on AI graphics though. I've seen some pretty weird stuff come out of the AI graphics tools, but
it's fun to play with, right? It's a toy on day one. But
right.
It's
So
fun
does the memo product then also have like templates for somebody rather than just a blank sheet, or?
Yeah, so yeah, you can choose a press release template that comes down, and you just have to swap in the date,
right?
The a CEO quote and stuff like that. You've got the AI writing, you've got the collaboration, you've got the peer reviews, and basically all that comes together, and then for the person running this sort of program, it's geared for, like you set a deadline, like we need these memos drafted so that when we go into planning, we have them ready and actionable. So, we've all been a part of those planning meetings that are just a shit show, right? It's like, just chaos. And,
yes.
And then people are trying to think outside the box. They're saying, oh, we need to do something different. But those ideas need to be, they need to be incubated for months, if not years. So it's a really concise format to try and steer the employees towards getting this 6-page document, getting it ready for those execs. So it's actionable. And then they can they can choose to resource accordingly. They might not be able to do all 10 projects or something. They might have to just pick 3, but the scope and the resourcing and the projections are all in one place where they could say, all right, I'm picking these three, and then we're not going to have the resources for four. The one thing you don't want to do is like do half of number one, right? You don't want to be like, oh, well, you asked for 10 resources, but we're going to give you 3. Like you have to, we call it quantum prioritization. You have to either fully fund that project or not. And I think these memos kind of create that contract that you say, look, we need all of this. We're not going to just limp in and start working on this. It's like, if you want to launch this thing on this date, here's the resources, here's the scope we're projecting we're going to deliver. Don't give me half the resources and still expect it to succeed, because that's not going to work. And I think that's probably one of the most interesting insights of the whole learnings from Amazon, is that they were pretty ruthless. Like they would be like, this is cute, this project is great, but we're funding this other project, so we can't fully resource this, so we have to table it. We're actually going to take resources away from that other project and roll them onto the first one, because it's required. And I think setting the scope on what it takes to win and not letting that get chipped away at is really, really powerful. And it's as much an organizational hack as it is anything else, right?
Yeah.
You're trying to get the organization to behave better.
Exactly, because everybody's aligned on it, right? So there's no ambiguity of this moving target, right? This is, and it's not in violation of agile innovations becoming the big thing, but many people try to use agile as is kind of the soft way of not really committing to late binding, as we used to call it in the in the software world. But in reality, it's not about the underlying elements. It is about what the customer receives, and do you create enough value to make the customer want to work with it, use it, or whatever, right? And so, if I'm going to use memos to parlay out an innovation that's 3-4 years out, knowing what that target is, and you need to have the right to make some adjustments, competitive market change. 3 years out's hard. 4 years out starts to get really hard to predict what that market looks like, or just a product that you're going to do a year from now. Use the same approach. But what is unique about what Amazon does with the Bezos's no PowerPoint is that 6-page memo gets sent to everybody in the executive team to read before the meeting.
Yep.
Today, I've seen more planning meetings where you come in and nobody's done any prep work.
Yep.
And 100% of it then is the pitch, and you don't spend the time discussing the idea. You're just learning the idea. And then you get the last 10 minutes of hurry up, we need to make a decision, versus prepare, read the memo, understand the idea, and then come in to talk about the idea, not spend 50 minutes of a 1-hour presentation learning about the idea and then make a decision.
Exactly right. And I mean, you think about the world we're living in today. I mean, it's super complex. I mean, I don't even think humans were designed for this kind of world where there's so much change. Your way of living is changing in real time. Like maybe you thought you'd own a car and a house, and now they're digital nomads and Uber, right? Like it's just like, and that complexity requires like rigorous thinking. You have to think about, will we have global broadband available? Will we have IoT? Will we have people going to space or whatever? So you chase all that down, and when you go to write a sentence, it's like it forces you to collapse those like 50 possibilities into one possibility and write that story. It is hard. I'm not going to lie. And there's only so much a tool can do, but I think the tool can help you manage the program, which is where it really, shines. But to get your thoughts together on that thing, and to make some of those hard decisions on scope, about, Alexa, when it came out, the Echo Dot, like it wasn't everything, but it was the right things, right? It had the music, it had the date, had the weather, stuff like that. So, I think getting, thinking concretely about the future, teaching people that skill. I mean, there are people who are naturally futurists, but it's a learned skill. You can think about, computers are going to get faster and broadband's going to increase, and there are discernible trends you can use to kind of look into the future. So, but I think that what's new here is that the complexity of the environment that people are operating in is just exponentially growing. So it's really helpful to just think soberly about how all these pieces come together, and then say, I believe if we pull all this together and deliver this product on this date, that we can be successful. And then you kind of have that fixed, and you're not kind of, you're not fishtailing all the way there. Obviously you have to adapt and adjust, and some things don't work. And some projects won't work in general, but I think it's a real shift for organizations to think this deeply about the future, and then work backwards from that and lay in their plan to get there.
Yeah, and I agree, and I think it also plays out the whole alignment and strategy across the organization, getting people all to have an understanding of where that vision is, versus kind of a bottom-up forced process, or from one department trying to get forcing the other departments. Have the conversation of what that future looks like, and then backcast to understand what the milestones are. So as we wrap up today's episode, Matt, if people want to get more information on this on Memo, what's the best place that they can go look for that?
Yeah, so just go to brightidea.com. You'll see it right there on the homepage. You can sign up for a free trial. There's self-service options if you're doing something broader, multi-department. We're happy to chat with folks and figure out what they need. But just go there, sign up, and you can start writing your first memo. Check out the AI tool. It's kind of cool to play with that, like you do with playing with the Dolly images and stuff. And sometimes you can just ask it a question like, "What is the pricing model for this product?" And it surprisingly gives you like a nice paragraph back. May not be exactly what you're looking for, but a lot of the writing's done for you. So it's a great way to get started. And then there is some organizational transformation that you want to do alongside of this. That, hey, we're gonna get these memos prepped so that they're ready for our next planning cycle, so that we have something well thought out instead of kind of the chaos of the annual planning meetings.
Yeah, it's great. So. With that, hey, Matt, thanks a lot for taking the time for coming on the show and sharing with us the update on Bright Ideas, but also to give us some insight on the new memo based off of the Amazon model, which I always thought was kind of interesting. Bezos has a great reputation of pushing his teams to invent and incubate, not just acquire, and it shows out in their success. And it sounds like Bright Ideas has latched onto some of that thinking and creating a tool that allows the rest of us to learn from that. So thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you, Phil. It's a pleasure to be with you again, and to be on the longest running podcast in history. So keep up the great work, and we'll be talking to you soon.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
So what do you think of Matt's announcement? This announcement around long-form ways of describing the innovation, getting rid of the PowerPoint, getting rid of the crutches that we typically have used in the past in order to try to convince somebody that we've got the really great idea. Kind of the Amazon model of outlaw PowerPoint, create the 6-page memo, build out your FAQ, build out the press release, just as if the product truly existed. Not describing what the future looks like, but think that you're standing in that future and describing what it is today, as if that future were today. It's an interesting concept. As we shared a little bit in the show, we have the new near future videos, which is the method that I use because I'm a much more of a visual learner or way of conveying information. So we've done 4 of the near future films. The 5th one we just announced a couple of weeks ago. So you can hop on over. It's up at theinnovators.network. So you can check out all of the near future films are actually in the video section at theinnovators.network. So you definitely want to go check those out and see which ones of those you would be, see if they convey some form of inspiration for you. But what Matt is doing and the tools that they're embedding into Bright Ideas, I think is quite interesting. I think idea management systems are key for organizations to be able to capture, categorize, etc. There is a past show where I talk about the key features that I look for in IMS systems. It's generic. It's not specific to BrightIdeas or any of the other tools that are out there. I just list out, based on my experience of using IMS systems, different ones over the years, what are the key features that I look for in an IMS platform. So you want to hop on over, search for that, and take advantage of that and see, just become aware if you're out there looking for a new IMS platform. But it's going to be interesting to see how this BrightIdea's Memo feature plays out, and do people buy into what Bezos is saying around don't let the crutch get in the way, don't let PowerPoint become the crutch. Think differently about how you convey the idea, not about what in the future, but think about it as if you were in the future today and you backcast, look backwards to what today and what you would need to do to make that future a reality. So check that out. Go on over to BrightIdeas, and we'll have links in the show notes. And check that out and try test drive the free trial and see if that is something that's interesting for you. With that, thank you again for taking the time out of your busy schedule to join us here on the show. I greatly value it. Again, go over, you can check out back episodes for Killer Innovations. Not all of the back shows have yet been migrated over. They're in the process of getting moved. So killerinnovations.com is the master archive. That is where all the shows are at, going all the way back to 2005, if you're interested in going back and listening to all of those past episodes. So check that out. But again, check out not just Killer Innovations, but all the other contributors and the great content that's now being shared and published over at theinnovators.network. So with that, thank you again. Thank you for your time. We will be back next week with a new episode. And until then, work on your idea, get it out there, and change the world. Bye-bye.
Podcasting nonstop since 2005, this has been the Killer Innovation Show on the Innovators Network.
This show is distributed by the Innovators Network. For more information and other great shows and content, visit theinnovators.network.